They called it a dream come true. But behind the yellow brick road was a nightmare. When The Wizard of Oz hit theaters in 1939, audiences saw pure magic. A young girl whisked away by a tornado, colorful lands, talking scarecrows, and flying monkeys. It looked effortless. But behind the curtain, what the cameras didn't show was pain, exhaustion, and tragedy. The truth is, The Wizard of Oz was born during one of the harshest eras in Hollywood. The late 1930s were a time of chaos and experimentation. The Great Depression had left studios desperate for a hit, and every project had to be bigger, brighter, and louder to pull audiences back into theaters. Just a decade earlier, Fritz Lang's Metropolis had shown the world how far filmmakers would go for spectacle. Hundreds of extras collapsing from heat, sets built like industrial prisons, and directors pushing everyone to the breaking point. MGM's The Wizard of Oz followed that same dangerous ambition, only this time it was painted in color. Technicolor was still new, a revolutionary but punishing technology. The cameras were enormous, hot, and temperamental. To capture those vibrant hues, the studio used blinding lights that made the set feel like an oven. Actors sweated beneath heavy costumes, makeup melted, and air conditioning didn't exist. The Tin Man's metallic look came at a horrifying cost. The first actor cast, Buddy Ebsen, inhaled aluminum dust from his makeup until his lungs began to close. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition and replaced in secret. His successor, Jack Haley, wore a revised paste instead of powder, but it still gave him eye infection so severe he could barely see. The Wicked Witch of the West, played by Margaret Hamilton, suffered even worse. During a scene where she disappears in a flash of fire, the trapdoor failed. Flames engulfed her costume. She suffered second- and third-degree burns on her face and hands and spent weeks recovering. Her green makeup, made from copper oxide, was so toxic it had to be removed with alcohol and acetone, stripping layers of her skin every day. When she returned, she refused to film any more fire scenes, and MGM used her stunt double, who also got burned during another explosion. Meanwhile, Judy Garland, the soul of the movie, was only 16. MGM executives treated her like property. They put her on a diet of black coffee, soup, and cigarettes to keep her thin, and dosed her daily with amphetamines to stay awake through the endless shooting hours. Then, when she finally went home, they gave her sleeping pills to force her to rest. It was a cycle of chemical control that would haunt her for life. She worked 6 days a week, up to 16 hours a day. Every smile, every note of "somewhere over the rainbow" came from a girl who was exhausted, starved, and terrified of disappointing the men who controlled her career. On set, when she laughed during a take, the studio head reportedly slapped her across the face. Even the supporting cast suffered. The Munchkin actors were paid less than the dog. Many were mistreated, confined to small quarters, and made fun of by the crew. Toto, the beloved terrier, was accidentally stepped on by a guard and broke his foot, forcing production to stop for 2 weeks. And then there were the constant production changes. 4 different directors came and went. Scripts were rewritten daily. Sets were rebuilt. One costume designer quit after fainting from heat exhaustion. Another technician suffered burns from an exploding light. It was chaos disguised as fantasy. Yet somehow, through sheer force of human will, or maybe insanity, The Wizard of Oz was completed. It cost nearly $3 million, one of the most expensive films of its time. MGM executives weren't even sure it would succeed. At first, it didn't. The movie barely made back its budget in 1939. Only years later, when it began airing on television, did it become the beloved classic everyone knows. But for those who lived it, Oz was never magical. Judy Garland never escaped the addiction and control that started on that set. Margaret Hamilton carried her scars for life. Buddy Ebsen never again spoke warmly of the studio system. The yellow brick road might have led Dorothy home. But for the people behind the camera, there was no such thing as home. Only exhaustion, exploitation, and pain hidden behind glitter and song. The film promised dreams. But what it really left behind were ghosts. That's the nightmarish truth behind The Wizard of Oz.